Hi, and welcome to The Wise Divorce. I'm Jessica Woll, divorce and family law attorney and author of The Wise Divorce. Last time we talked a little bit about how to choose the right divorce attorney for you, and I hope that those tips came in handy. So now let's say you've interviewed at least 3 divorce attorneys, and you're basically gathering knowledge and information to help you make a decision about filing for divorce. So now, hopefully one of those people resonated with you and you felt comfortable with them. What I would ask you to do when you do find a divorce attorney that you want to work with is ask them to create a checklist for you or work with you on a checklist. Everyone's checklist will be a little different based on your facts and circumstances. But what does a checklist look like when you're getting ready to file for divorce? So we're talking pre-divorce filing. Well, first, I think you need to check in on your finances. How are you doing? With that, you maybe want to set a little bit of money aside to hire that family law attorney. Just know that you have a little cushion when you're going to file for divorce. That's number one. So that's taking care of finances. In terms of your mental health, that's super important during divorce. Lots of people are going to come at you with the advice, and tell you horror stories about other people's divorces. Keep a blindfolder on, think your case is different and unique and your experience will be what you create it to be. Again, you can only control your actions, but hopefully you set a role model for your spouse to also go along with trying to make your divorce an amicable one. So take care of your mental fitness as well. That means maybe seeking out counseling. Seeing a counselor is probably a very good idea to navigate a divorce. Now, let's say you're kind of wishy-washy, which I think happens a lot of times. When you're thinking about divorce, your gut's telling you it's the right decision, but you're still having a hard time making that decision. What I said last time is it takes a lot of courage to walk into a divorce attorney's office and take that first step. But I'm assuming if you're making the checklist, you've taken that step and, as we said, perhaps decided on an attorney you want to work with. So we're going to check out our finances. We're going to check out our mental health. And if you have children and they're a certain age, they're old enough where they might benefit from therapy, you might want to think of getting them into counseling too. Because oftentimes when there's minor children at home and you're obviously getting ready to file for divorce, we know that your home life is a bit tumultuous. You want to make this journey easier for your kids as well. Now, pre-divorce filing, there's no judge to answer to. So you can make decisions that are in your best interest and your family's best interest without any concern that a judge is going to have oversight and make decisions. Because once you file for divorce, if you and your spouse don't agree on interim issues, like what a parenting schedule is going to look like, even if you're living under the same roof, how are you going to navigate taking care of your children, for instance, or how is the financial status quo going to be maintained? If you can't agree once you file for divorce, a judge is going to step in and make those decisions for you. So we want to avoid going to court as much as possible because you want to keep the control amongst yourself and your spouse. So that's a great way to check out your mental health issues with a therapist so that you can bring your A game when you discuss with your spouse, hey, we're going to file for divorce. How can we do this amicable? How can we leave the least impact, a negative one that is, on our children? So that's really important. Now, if you're not ready, you might also in your checklist decide that you want to set a timeline for yourself. Maybe there's a big event coming up, a wedding in the summer or a graduation, and you just don't really want to rock the boat. But give yourself a timeline so you can take some control. Like if maybe you're kind of still on the fence about filing for divorce and you want to see if the marriage can be salvaged, give yourself a timeline. Come up with some lists in your checklist of what you need to see happen in your marriage to, continue down the path of making it work. So take that control for yourself. And again, the best way to take control is to arm yourself with knowledge. So hopefully you've done that by doing research and talking to, several attorneys and picking the right one for you. This is found in chapter 4 of my book. The only other thing I would say is that you want to also protect your property. So if you're concerned that you have a very volatile spouse, once you file for divorce, that spouse is going to dissipate assets or take things out of the house, there's a couple things you can do. You could videotape the contents of your house. Make sure that you have a date stamp so you know what date all these things existed. So if things start disappearing, you have documentation of what was in your house. The other thing is once you file for divorce, a court can grant you an order. It's called a mutual property restraining order. That's an order that's mutual, so it applies to both you and your spouse. Basically, that order says that you cannot dissipate any marital assets during the pendency of your case. Basically, a court wants you and your spouse to live as if you hadn't filed for divorce yet. So while you address your differences, you continue to maintain a financial status quo that worked prior to the filing. You can do business in the ordinary course under a mutual property restraining order. But what that order stops you from doing is taking extraordinary measures that are outside the scope of what you normally do on a monthly basis with your bills. Like you can't go and jet off somewhere or, buy a lavish vacation or, a Cartier piece of jewelry, for instance. But speaking of jewelry, when you do get divorced, your personal property does remain your own. So if you do have a Cartier bracelet or a Rolex watch or a really nice pair of golf clubs, those stay with the person that owns those properties. That is not divided by the court and divorce. And often I get this question about an actual engagement ring. The engagement ring belongs to the wife. If you get married, you've fulfilled your marriage contract. It's your ring, even if you get divorced. So it will come up sometimes in cases, but understand that that ring is yours. If just like the golf clubs might belong to your spouse, or like I said, jewelry, hobby items, those stay with the person that had them at the time of the divorce. I hope that this information has been helpful. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon on The Wise Divorce.